Hey, good evening, and welcome to Here's the Deal with Shiloh and Marvin. How are you, Marv?
I am doing fantastic, Shiloh. How about you?
Pretty good. So we got a heck of a show tonight. We'll call it our September 11th edition. Obviously, what is it? 21 years ago now.
Yeah,
Is my
uh,
math correct on that?
crazy day. That's
Yeah.
what I can say.
Where were you? Do you remember?
I was living in a house on 12th Street in Bismarck. I had worked a graveyard the night before, and the morning that it happened, I I'd come down and I'd turned on the TV, and it was just as that second plane was coming in, and I thought I
Mhm.
had left a movie on before I'd
Yeah.
gone to bed. Like it was surreal.
Yeah, I was in college in Dickinson, and I was actually getting ready to go to the sale barn. At that time, uh,
22 years. Thank you.
yeah, I was working for the sale barn in Dickinson, and at any rate, I basically the same thing. I thought that I was watching a movie. So then I got to the sale barn and they started talking about it, and then that's when the third plane crashed into the Pentagon. And so it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we've got a heck of a guest tonight. Her name is Sheila Walker. She is going to be running for a state's Senate seat down there in Hawaii. And so she's going to be on tonight with us. And we're going to talk about that as well as the fires going on in Hawaii. And actually, it's kind of ironic that we're having Sheila on tonight because when we were visiting with her last week to get this set up, she informed us that she lived 5 blocks from the Twin Towers when it went down that day. So, at any rate, we'll visit with her a little bit about that. So, with that, let's bring on Sheila. How are you, Sheila?
Hey, great to see you, Shiloh. Marvin, nice to meet you. Thank you
Nice
so
to
much for
meet you.
having me today.
You bet. You bet. So, the first thing is obviously, this is my daughter, Landry. Comes in and sneaks in every once in a while. Anyway, first thing we'd like to talk to you about is obviously it's September 11th, and when we were visiting with you, you had told us that you live 5 blocks from where the Twin Towers were. So I guess
It's true.
could we get your recollection what you were feeling that day?
Well, yes. I mean, that was obviously an impactful day on my life. I think I'm still affected by it in like a lot of ways. People are. But the morning that when I woke up, you guys saw it on the news, and I heard the planes. So whether there were planes or whatever it was, I heard something. Especially the first one woke me up, and I thought, wow, that's kind of a low flying plane because in Manhattan there's only usually only helicopters that fly around. You don't hear airplanes over the city because it's a no fly zone. So and so then I didn't really think much of it, and then 30 minutes later I hear another one and I'm thinking, what is going on? That just doesn't sound right to me. So I ran up to the top of my building, which is a 5-story building 5 blocks away. And from the rooftop, you could look out and just see the two Roman candles just going off like we saw all the images on the news. So whatever it was that I heard, I did hear something. And then all of my neighbors just came to the top of the roof and we just sat there literally all day watching the whole thing unfold. We watched all the people jumping, unfortunately. We watched the things come down as they did, and we just stood there basically paralyzed in shock. And thinking back now to myself, I think we should have been leaving. We should have been getting out of there because for all we
Mm,
knew, the whole downtown was going to go.
yep.
It didn't even cross our minds to evacuate or leave. So now I know, though, if something like that is happening around me, I think we should all leave as soon as possible. But um, the thing that struck me also, I mean, we can continue to talk about the Twin Towers if you like, but what struck me about these Lahaina fires is that the ash quality is so much the same. It's so eerie that how everything was just pulverized to dust. There's absolutely nothing left, just like those buildings. It's like, how could all that material in those buildings just turn to dust in one, just because of one big basically implosion. And then the other odd thing are these cars that are burnt out all over the place. I mean, I just don't see how these little embers could have floated around and caught all these cars on fire. I mean, I'm suspicious about how that happened. But the same burnt out cars were in Manhattan that were in Lahaina. They looked exactly the same, and cars that weren't even close to fires. So those are some of the things I have questions about, along with other things.
So if we can go back just a little bit, I'm curious, what was it sitting on top of that roof and actually seeing the buildings hit? What was going through your guys' mind as they fell? Because weren't you getting, I mean, how close was the ash to you guys?
Well, we were high up, so we did, and the smoke was blowing towards Brooklyn. So I lived 5 blocks up. I mean, if the smoke had been blowing toward us, I'm sure we'd have had to leave. But we weren't concerned about the smoke. We were just looking at the towers. Now, what I was thinking, especially the tower that got hit second, it got hit lower, and it did look at some point like it was going to tip over. And I was just saying to my neighbors, I'm like, look, that thing's going to tip over. The top of that's going to tip. And the more it started to look like it was going to tip, I mean, then that's when it came down. So
I can't even imagine.
It didn't tip. So yes, we were all standing up there in shock. I lived right next door to a fire station of 60 men, one of the largest fire stations. They were all my neighbors. They were all down there. And we were just praying for everybody in there. We all had friends and neighbors that worked in those towers as well. So we were all just praying for their well-being. And then, I don't know, there was a group of British friends of ours who were on the rooftop as well. And they just decided to drink their way through it, kind of like the Titanic going down. And so the Brits, broke out the booze and drank themselves silly that day. And literally, there was nothing else you could do. Everyone felt so helpless. But like I said, we just stood there in awe and stared at everything while it happened.
Yeah, that's just, I can't imagine it. I know what I was feeling in North Dakota. I can't imagine what you guys were feeling that day.
It was pretty horrific to believe. But luckily, I mean, those buildings hold 50,000 people each. Mm-hmm. So the casualties could have been so crazy high. So luckily, there weren't a lot of spaces in the buildings that were occupied, which is also a little curious to me. They kind of stopped leasing the building out for the year prior to this event. So a lot of those floors were actually vacant floors. So we're blessed that not more people were in that building.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like as time passes now, more and more people have more theories about what actually happened. And if you look at them, I mean, for me, you could see some of what people are saying. It's just, no matter what happened, how it went down or anything, in my mind, it's a horrible day in American history and part of our, history that is just, I don't know, still to this day, it leaves you kind of numb.
Absolutely. And especially for the firemen, the firefighters in New York, they have such a strong brotherhood. And so they just are not able to recover from that kind of loss. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. And for them to have to go on and continue with their jobs the next day while funerals are going on, like all day long, 3-4 funerals everywhere to remember all of those firefighters. That's also super heartbreaking in a city where our firefighters there in New York City They are the local heroes. They really, really are a fabric of the neighborhood, and they're friends. They leave their fire doors open. People walk by on the sidewalks. They chat with people. So it's different than living in a suburb where you probably don't know your local firefighters. Everybody knows all the firemen in New York, and we all know it's a friendly place to go and stop for a bowl of chili because they're always doing chili cook-offs. So it really did leave a huge scar on the city and the firefighters there.
Um, so moving forward here with Hawaii, what's the latest going on? Let's just back up and let's start from the
Okay.
beginning. What's going on? What happened in Hawaii for those of us who don't really know, and just let's start from the beginning, if you would.
Yes, well, Maui, I live on the island of Maui, and all the islands are prone to wildfires. We do have a lot of dry areas. It's lush in many areas, but there's also a lot of dry brush and dry areas on the islands, especially on Maui. And this time of year, it's extremely dry. So the other day, on the 8th of August, the fires started. They popped up everywhere. There's several here, several there. They're all over the island. So that's kind of like a typical day. But there's also a hurricane offshore, which created some strong winds. So the winds and fire, that doesn't sit well together. And so the firemen kept saying that they were containing the fires. And so we're looking for reports, and you don't hear anything on the news. There's nothing about anything that sounds really alarming. And the whole area of the west side where Lahaina is located lost their power early in the day. So they lost power. They also lost cell service, which seems a little unusual. I'm not sure why all the cell towers weren't working, but no one had spotty cell service. So I had some friends over there who were texting me that day saying, Sheila, can you just look on the news? We can see smoke in the distance, but we can't get any information in. So I was frantically looking everywhere on every news channel that I could to try to see if there's any updates. And there was nothing. There was no information. There was nothing about the fires. And there was no one even watching it. Like I'm originally from Missouri. In Missouri, we have tornado watchers. When there's a tornado coming, people know it's coming from the west or from the east, and it's moving, it's changed course. And they're updating you every 3 seconds and telling you to take cover. So these fires were going off, and there was no information anywhere. That part to me was shocking. I was appalled that I couldn't get any information to my friends. So I said, it doesn't sound like there's anything happening, so it must not be that bad. And then here's a curious thing. That evening, around 6 p.m., the mayor came on and did a press release, and he did come on to the media here, and he said, yes, there's some fires. Yes, they're being controlled. They're contained. He seemed very calm. He was in his office, supposedly in his office. He had a bookcase behind him, and he didn't seem alarmed at all. And he didn't act like there was a state of emergency at all. And while he was giving this press update at 6 p.m. that evening, Lahaina town had already burned down. So the fires had started at 4:30 to 6 o'clock. So whether he was being honest and no one informed the mayor that an entire town had just burned down, or whether he was not being honest, I mean, I don't want to accuse him of anything, but there was a miscommunication there, and that's a huge failure to the people, because when I saw him saying that, I thought, okay, well, that's not too alarming. There's no need to, panic or prepare or call any of my friends over there and tell them to leave because of the fire. So I wasn't concerned. And I'm sure a lot of people weren't concerned. No sirens were going off. There was no reports on the news that anything was happening. So they didn't even know. A lot of people without power in Lahaina, they didn't even know that the town had burned down until the next day.
Jeez.
That's insane. Well, and what I found really interesting, I want to share it real quick here. How often do you see Google Maps updated this quickly?
Exactly.
Like,
never.
We were just looking at this, though, and go ahead, Marvin. We'll let you explain what.
Like, it's insane because if you look, like, the streets are cleared, but the businesses are toast. And the other thing I found really interesting, let me find them here. is if you come in on these buildings, like complete devastation, but then what do we got going on with all these extra crews? Is that your FEMA services? Is that like there's a lot of brand new white vehicles that are sitting out there that aren't burnt up? Well, the rest of the town literally looks like a tornado went through, a fire went through, everything else. I've never seen Google Maps update that fast. And you can tell what sections were affected, what sections weren't. It's weird that you have things that are standing and others that are, I mean, you look here, you have destruction all the way around. But from the looks of this building, yeah, it says temporary closed, but it doesn't look like it's been shelled or gutted. So I guess like I've never seen Google Maps update that quickly. Never ever. The other question I had for you is Motorola does North Dakota State Emergency Services. Are they the same ones doing you guys out there too?
I'm not sure what service they use, so that part I don't know. I really don't know, and it hasn't been printed anywhere. No one's talked about yes, our siren system, our tsunami system. They just say that we have the most extensive tsunami alarm system in the country. So
they should let that rip if there was fires going.
Yeah, well, and the painful part is that I don't know if you saw this article or the press conference where the director in charge of the sirens chose not to sound the sirens, chose not to, because he was afraid that people would run up the mountain or away from the ocean, because that's what you do in a tsunami. You run the opposite direction. Well, he thought that might have created a hazard because it might have pushed some people right into the fire. So it was a conscious choice not to sound them. And that is a complete failure in leadership, a complete breakdown in all of our communications. And so then the next day, he did resign, and they asked him if he regretted making that decision. And to add insult to injury, he says no, he did not regret his decision after he knew how many people had perished because of that foolish, and just inappropriate, irresponsible disregard for life. That also, and the fire hydrants. The fire hydrants had no water because they made a conscious choice not to not to move the water down to the town. They kept it up high for the farmers. They thought that was a better decision to make. Save the farmers, don't save the town.
So now that was another question I had, because I listened to an interview you did about 3 weeks ago, and I don't remember what the gentleman's name was, but you had brought that up about the water. So what is the water situation there? Like, because it wasn't there some issues with it before this even happened?
Long before. This is it's something specific, I think pretty specific to the island, but also you see in areas, really dry areas like in Utah and Arizona. I think they have a lot of water rights issues as well. So they're constantly fighting over the water rights here and who deserves to have the water. So as if there's a water shortage, which also blows my mind, because our West Maui Mountain has some of the largest rainfall of any other place in the world. So how this place could be so dry, I'm not sure why they aren't able to capture any of that natural rainwater. But evidently, they don't know how to do that. And so
Conveniently, right?
I don't. It's mind-boggling to me. I'm not an engineer, so maybe it is impossible. But I think there's probably some hydroponic ways that we could capture that water. But so what they do, they hold the water. There's water, like the water czar gathers the water up, and they hold it in holding tanks, and then they can divert it to different areas as needed. So usually it goes to the hotels and swimming pools before it goes to the neighborhoods and being able to wash your car or water your lawn. And so they're always fighting over this, and I think it's inappropriate all the way around. there should be enough water for everybody. There should not be this water rights thing of like who has more rights to have the water. As if you're more eligible for water than I am. It just that they call it water equity. So they want to give equal portions of water to different areas. And I'm sorry, but if there's a fire where thousands of people are dying and the town is being burned down, 100% of the water goes to that fire. And I think everybody on this island would agree. So
why do you think, and we're going to get into some stuff here, but maybe I should ask this later. Part of the interview that I seen, towards the end of it, you guys started talking about these balloons. And if you remember correctly, or I know, Marvin, you can probably vouch for this. We had some over Montana, and then there was one over, wasn't it New York or out east somewhere? And did you guys not have one of those balloons down by you as well?
Yeah, yes, reportedly. So I didn't see it personally, but there's
Right.
reported balloons, and also reported the green lasers, the type that actually I guess survey the topography of the landscape. So green lasers were sighted, balloons were sighted. I actually sighted the submarines. So submarines were popping up out of the water. So just a few days before this all happened. So I don't often see the submarines. I've seen them a few times in my life, but I have a direct view of the water. So I've been seeing submarines recently too, which just feels unusual to me.
So what are they saying caused this?
So the first fire supposedly was caused by the power lines that went down.
Okay.
So power lines, of course, could spark a fire, and that fire was contained. The second fire, they have no idea. They just keep saying cause unknown. And it's not only the Lahaina fire. There was a same fire going off, simultaneous fire going off in another area 40 miles away up the other mountain in Kula, the area called Kula. So that fire also took out many, many homes and killed people. So there were fires in Kula as well, that actually the night before the Lahaina fires. So it was going first. It's kind of complicated because I think they did, my opinion, there were fires set in three different areas, three opposite areas of the island. It created chaos. It depleted all of our services, and people didn't know where to look for anything, information, anything to help them understand what was going on. So again, further on in the story, that evening that the Lahaina fires, when Lahaina was already burned down, unbeknownst to all of us, at 11:30 at night, I got a report on my phone that said to evacuate my own neighborhood. And I'm 20 miles south of Lahaina. So how is this possible? So we sent a scout out from our neighborhood to go down the road. And my neighbor came back and said, yeah, there's a big fire blazing right down the road and it's blowing this way. So again, we should have evacuated, but had we gone down the road, there's only one road in, one road out. So this whole place is pretty much a fire trap. So a lot of neighbors did try to evacuate. They would go down to the beach. For whatever reason, my landlords and I decided to stay on our property and not leave until it perhaps got a little closer to us. It was 5 miles away, but eventually we could see the flames off in the distance, but it was still 5 miles away. And somehow that fire just miraculously went out. By 4 a.m, it was gone. It was out. It didn't continue to blow towards us. And there were no firefighters really fighting it. So water wasn't being spread on it. The winds were still blowing, but it somehow burnt itself out.
So what was interesting to me is, when we talked about, when we first got a hold of you to do the show and we're visiting, and one thing that you brought up was that your friend was able to retrieve her safe, and when she opened it up, that there was nothing but ash in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that everything, and you can kind of see it on some of the news, but man, like you were talking, some of all that stuff, there's houses and stuff that are just melted, cars melted, and then not but 15 feet away, there's a tree that's just, it's never didn't get touched.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they explaining that? Are they saying anything about that? Or obviously there's a lot of theories and stuff, but what are they telling you guys down there?
Nothing. They're radio silent. They have not done any press releases. There are very few updates. The only thing that happens, the governor comes in and talks about how he's going to rebuild the town. There's very little information. There's very little communication. The mayor's not addressing us. Many of the residents are asking and requesting a town hall. We want answers. We want meetings. We want face to face. We want to hold these officials accountable, and we want answers, not only on with the cause of the fire, but also about the missing people. They still have not been able to come up with the correct number of how many people are really missing, which feels very suspicious to me as well. Like, I don't see why they can't determine who's not been accounted for. And of the 115 people that they actually have in, the morgue or the body bags, whichever, they've only been able to identify about 60 of those. Maybe the count's gone up or down a little bit. Yeah, and that, I just said it. The funny thing is the count sometimes goes down. It's like, wait a minute, yesterday you said you identified 60. Now you say it's only, 58. What happened? Did you misidentify somebody? So the count goes up and down. And again, it's the chaos, the confusion. They're just keeping everyone confused, no clear information, and the story seems to change. And so the county sued the electric company for for being responsible. The electric company says it's not their fault at all. They're putting it back on the county. So they're in a chaotic kind of fight between them, fighting about who caused it. And so the people are traumatized. These people who lost everything, lost their families, they're in trauma and still in shock. And so they aren't even able to stand up and fight for themselves because they are so still in this state of trauma. And I think they're in a super vulnerable state too. That's why we don't want them to make any harsh decisions at the moment. I certainly don't want them to leave the island. I'm like, please stay here. We'll try to help accommodate everybody here and make them comfortable here, as opposed to leaving. Because if our families leave and go to Las Vegas and try to settle there and rebuild their lives, they're never going to be able to come back here.
Where are those people right now?
So they're all in temporary housing. Some are in hotels. Some are in still tents on the landscape. So they're living in tent housing, and the hotels are offering them rooms until next week. I think the hotels are going to go back to housing tourists instead of these people who lost their homes. And so they're going to have to find a place. And that's the governor's solution, is to ship them to Las Vegas.
Well, I don't understand the theory behind that either, because if it's as bad, you got people out of their homes and different things like that, how can they think about tourists? I mean, obviously, am I right in saying that none of that burnt then, or none of the tourist places burnt? Or
the large hotels are a little further up the coast from Lahaina. So Lahaina didn't have, many large hotels. It was mostly neighborhoods and small businesses. Very, very quaint, beautiful little town. So so further up the coast is where they house the people a couple miles away in a different neighborhood, where the hotels are all still fine. Although the water is toxic all over that area. So there's been water warnings, and you have to drink bottled water. So the water is very toxic. Even the homes that didn't get burned higher up on the hill, their water's toxic. They're going to be breathing toxic air. There's no amenities over there now. No restaurants are open there at all. Like no services are open on that whole side of the island. So, and they're isolated on that side of the island. So they have to drive 30 minutes or 30, 40 minutes to get anywhere. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot if you're used to living out in the,
right.
Out in the wide open spaces where you guys live. But here, it's a big deal to have to make a trip, and that's more gas money. And they've lost their jobs now too, even if their house didn't burn. So the expenses are higher than they're used to also. And it's just making it a huge burden on our entire society here. And we need the tourist dollars, though that is true, because we do rely on that. 80% of our economy is from the tourism. So with no tourists here, everyone is suffering, everyone. So everybody needs the tourists to actually come and be here. So it's a, it's a delicate balance here. Certainly, I think putting the people first and being respectful of the grieving people is important. But the other parts of the island are totally open for tourism, so we can keep those areas open. But I don't understand why a visitor would want to go drive past this entire fire zone and see the devastation, because you have to drive right through it in order to get to these other fancy hotels. So I don't know. Maybe they should come and see it and actually see what has happened.
So is it fenced off or anything like that, or?
So the black fence they put all around all of Lahaina town. Immediately, chain link fence went up, and the black cloth went up. It's like shrouded in a black shroud, and it's off limits. There's guards at every entrance. If you're caught trying to enter it, you will get arrested. So the way they've also treated the people who actually have property there is so disrespectful. I think everyone who owns a home there that got destroyed, they should be able to go in with an escort and at least have some look around to see if they could find any remnants of anything, or just to have closure, or just to see where they used to live. My friend who was able to go in and get her safe, she did that on the second day after the fire, before they had set up the fence, before anything. She just went right in. She just went right back and looked for her things.
So how are they justifying that?
Oh, well, because they say it's not safe, of course. And certainly some of the structures, they don't want people walking around. Okay, right. First they said they didn't want people walking around because you might be walking around on someone's ashes, so a deceased person, and you might not know it was a person, so they didn't want those, bodies disturbed, which, all right, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it is unsafe, okay, because yes, it's unstable structures, of course. And yes, there's toxic ash everywhere, and you shouldn't be stirring it up or breathing it. That makes sense. But you could take people in, like I said, with an escort. The way they handled it was just so disrespectful, and there's just no humanity here. And the humanitarian organizations that came in were the ones that were not being very humane. So that was the people in the community were taking care of the people who were devastated way better than the FEMA or Red Cross.
So here, go ahead, Marvin.
So, with all this said, tell me a little bit about the Building Beyond Barriers working group that they have going on from Governor Green. Is that actually productive, or what's going on with that?
Yes, well, yes, they're coming up with all kinds of creative ideas of what they're going to do with that space once they get the clearance to go ahead and buy it all and do what they want, because that's their plan.
So it's a land grab.
It has to be 100%. And he does talk about the green cities. He talks about the 15-minute cities. So he's mentioned those things before, and that's actually in our long-term plan. Our 2030 agenda is smart city. And
what's the green city or
a smart city?
Real quick, there's a side question from Facebook. Have the missing school buses been found?
Still no report. Okay, and so I don't know if they're lost. They might be parked somewhere else. But why wouldn't our officials just come out and say, we moved them so that they wouldn't burn? They could easily squash all the rumors, but they don't. And this is the problem. They're not communicating well enough. And so without giving us any kind of explanation, it just allows people to think the worst and assume things. And if those buses were moved out and parked somewhere else, just let us know. There's got to be a logical explanation. And if there's not, then we deserve to continue to investigate and find out what happened to those buses.
Yeah, sorry to sidetrack. I just saw the
No, no,
question on the
absolutely.
schedule.
And the same with the children, because supposedly there are still a lot of children from the schools that are unaccounted for. But it's hard to say. I mean, no one apparently knows. The Department of Education apparently can't keep track of how many kids are missing, but they can certainly keep track of how many kids were, vaccinated with the COVID shot. So they know every single student. They know every teacher, and they know the ones that are missing. But there's just no information reporting on it.
Oh, it makes you wonder if their roll call was actually right to begin with, because I mean, in North Dakota, it's what, $14,900 per student enrolled in a school.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in Bismarck, there's been questions just in our school districts here if the enrollment numbers are actually accurate. So, going back to the horrifying fact that children could be missing, but the fact that they can't come up with numbers, like, that makes you question things too. I guess a really good lead in here for what you're doing. You told us this last week you were asked to run for the GOP chair. How did that go?
I did. So yes, that was Saturday night. So I flew over to Oahu on Saturday night, and there was an election for the chair and the first vice chair. So the chair went first, and in a very, very tight race, there were 5 of us running. There was a runoff, so I was in the top runoff. So between the two, I lost by a few votes, and it's heartbreaking for many reasons. I'm disappointed. A couple of the members who could have voted didn't show up to vote for me. So it's a shame, because the leadership that's going to take over is not going to do the right thing. And then I decided, since the floor was open to run for the first vice chair, I thought, well, okay, perhaps I'll run for that. And so I had someone nominate me for the first vice chair. And again, a runoff. I was in the top 2 for the runoff, and still lost that one by a very small margin as well. So that means a total new regime has taken over our party here in Hawaii, and their intentions are not to support any of the legislators who are already in office, because they believe all the people in our office currently are rhinos. And their intentions, it looks like they want to dismantle the party.
Now, Hawaii, you actually have what, 3 registered parties full time?
No, you can only have 2.
Okay.
There's only 2.
What's the third group then? The natives looking for sovereignty then?
So the Hawaii,
When I was reading it, it looks like it's a party.
Hawaii Kingdom. It's not a party. Did you see the word OHA? OHA.
So.
OHA. That is an organization that it's more like a tribal council of the Hawaiian Kingdom, but they don't have any rights in the legislature, and they aren't able to vote. So it's not really a party. I apologize, I don't have the right terminology for it. It's a council of mostly Hawaiian members.
Well, we have the 3 affiliated tribes up here. We have Standing Rock up here. We have that stuff. So, like, I understand that aspect, and I'd like to see some aspects of that change where they have more say in our legislative seats. Now, you're running for District 6. Is each island its own district, or how many seated legislators do you guys have?
So, Maui has 3 senators, and our Maui County is actually Maui Island, Lanai Island, and Molokai Island. So 3 islands. So it makes it a little more complicated when you're trying to campaign and help the people of your district, especially if you're spread out over several islands. Now, my district is Lahaina and Kihei, so I have basically the tourist district, the hotels, tourist neighborhoods, so I don't have to go from island to island. However, it's a pretty large, large territory, and basically, like I said, all the resorts are in my district. But overall in the whole state, did you want to know how many?
Yeah.
So there's 45 House reps and 27 senators.
Oh, good Lord, you
So
guys are like a third of the size of us. Well, about
yeah,
half.
it's small.
I think we're at 141 after redistricting here in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty wild. So, I saw your stuff listed from 22. Are your Senate seats every 2 years down there, or are they
No,
every?
they're every 4 years, but because of the redistricting, this particular seat came available again in 24. So I had so much momentum from 22, I just decided to continue running. So right after the election, I didn't win. Next day, I was right back out there campaigning, and continued because I knew I had an opportunity to just build on what I had already started. So, and now with this Lahaina fire, I find it curious that the senator that represents that area, he's nowhere to be found. He's not really doing statements. He's not really in the press. He's certainly not doing all the kinds of media that I'm doing. And he, granted, he did lose a condo that he kept there in that town, but his main home is on Oahu. His main home is not here, so it wasn't his main residence. So, but I would have thought that he would be out speaking about this and really trying to create more awareness and generate more money. I mean, a lot of part of what I'm doing also is trying to raise funds to help the people. So that's a big part of media exposure. The more I can speak, the more I can ask people to donate, the more we can help the people stay here and not force them, like I said, to leave and go. Even if they go over to the Big Island or somewhere else in Hawaii, they're still unlikely to come back here. So I would want to keep our families here because this community is very tight knit, and everyone knows everyone basically. Or you have a friend or a family member, someone was affected in this situation, and it's just heartbreaking to have these families leave because that's what makes Maui so unique and so beautiful. And once they leave, it's like a vacuum, just more, I don't want to be critical of Californians, but just more mainlanders will come here and settle. And that's just not the same flavor as all the local Hawaiians who have been here for generations.
Oh,
Where can they donate to?
My favorite charity is my church organization because all of the money that we collect is going directly to the fires. It's not going to overhead. So it's calvarymaui.com. So Calvary Chapel Church is where I attend. And our pastors, Dr. Kim and Kirk Milholm, are very involved in the rescue. They're both medical doctors also, and they've been treating patients who've been needing medical assistance as well because many of them now are not able to even get to the hospitals, and so they need in-home care. So they make house calls to the community in Lahaina. So it's calvarymaui.com.
Can you spell that?
CalvaryMaui.com.
yeah, it pulled me to a .org. Is that right?
It's the same.
Okay.
Real.
So, I mean, really, your politics down there aren't much different than up here in North Dakota, to be honest. Like here we watch small towns become ghost towns and everybody pushed into the city. But even if you look at, I used to live out in Bozeman. After college, I spent some time out there. And that was right when Ted Turner was coming out there. And at that point, it was affordable to own a house. It was affordable to purchase things. It wasn't at the out of control point. And it didn't take long for Hollywood to settle in, and cost of living out there, last time I checked, I think you almost have to work 2 jobs in order to barely be able to afford rent. And
Yeah.
that's just insane.
And our families are like that here too. Most of them do work two jobs. Multi generations live in a house together, so it's not uncommon for many people to share a house together. So, yeah, the cost of living here is just priced out anyone who's not in the upper class. And we still need all the service people. We still need, restaurant workers and busboys and housekeepers for all the upper class to come and enjoy this playground. And so what they're basically creating here is an economy of the elites and the serfs. And I'm absolutely against that. And if you destroy the flavor, like I said, you destroy the original Hawaiian flavor, you will not have aloha here. You will just have, all the elite stars and
Basically, you're gonna have Colorado.
Colorado and Bozeman. Yeah.
So, can you tell us what the land was like down there before this happened? Why would they want just a little piece like that? I guess that's
okay.
the question
Well,
to me.
it's actually a very important historical piece of land. It was the county seat of the Hawaiian Kingdom, so it was the capital of the Hawaii Kingdom. All the kings and queens had summer homes there, and so it was very, very important to Hawaiian culture. It's probably one of the most important spots for Hawaiian culture. There were a lot of original buildings left in this area. Some of the stone foundations are still left there. I would hope that they would build those back to their original state, because there's enough historical drawings and things that they could recreate those buildings. So it's an important piece of property. And it's also like waterfront in one of the most beautiful waterfront areas. And those businesses were privately owned. So, and almost all the homes were privately owned. So the buildings that you see left, those big box buildings, that's a Safeway, and there's a couple of big buildings. Those are corporate owned, probably owned by BlackRock already. So they didn't get destroyed. Imagine that. But all the small businesses that were privately owned, totally wiped out. So when they go in and scoop that up, my very first interview, I said they may turn this into Disneyland. And if that's not literal, at least it's metaphorical. They're going to turn it into a playground for their own agenda, whatever that is. And I'm going to fight for them to build it back in its original state and let every single landowner there have, the opportunity to build their homes back.
Yeah.
So I know in other interviews you've talked about the Navy presence there. It looks like Applied Science for the Air Force gets quite a bit of money annually too from the government. The Maui High Performance Computing Center, was that in the same area, or is that across the island someplace?
That's in it, yeah. Opposite side.
Opposite side.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, no, I was digging and looking around, and when you see a $75 million price tag going out someplace, you're like, I wonder where that was.
I'm sure there's all kinds of research you can do and connect the dots eventually on all the suspicious things, and maybe they'll add up someday. Maybe they'll never add up.
And I just ask a lot of questions. You can ask Shiloh,
as we should, but we should all be asking these questions, and we deserve answers.
I agree. Well, we got just a few minutes left here, and obviously, for those of you who don't know, I met Sheila down at the election summit. And so, Sheila, I was just wondering, can I get what was your overall thoughts about the election summit and where we're going with that?
Well, I think we definitely have to continue shoring up our elections, one way or the other. It doesn't matter if we think there's fraud or not. We just need to make sure that they're all being conducted accurately and efficiently. And I think they have a really great case for the hand ballots. I'm all for the paper ballots, hand counting. and same day results. I don't see why every county can't accomplish that. They prove to us how easy it can be done. So there's no need for, in my mind, there's just no need for the computer system.
I agree.
So, but here, like, this is another issue here, though. In Hawaii, all the islands have to submit their ballots to to Oahu, and so that's where our capital is. So they go over the internet. Unless we're going to agree to fly them over, they will still go over the internet.
How'd they do that before?
Exactly. I don't know. I guess they were. I mean, I guess they flew them over back in the day. I would be interested to see, or maybe they just called them in by phone. I don't know. In the 60s.
I think the big thing is if you look at it, up until maybe 20 years ago, there was a lot more physical polling places, which means a lot less to count.
Oh.
You total up your
every precinct. That's the idea of having precincts.
Yeah, you total up your precinct and you call it into the SOS office or to the Capitol or whatever, because there's your totals, here's your counts, and they're all done by hand. And here they keep using the excuse of a lack of election workers. We don't have judges. We don't have this. We don't have that. But with how fired up people are about the elections, I'm pretty sure that we could go to smaller precincts. Like, I can get judges not wanting to go to a mega district that's counting 6, 7, 8 different precincts and 4 different legislative sessions like we do the Civic Center here. That's insane. But if you go back to your churches, to your smaller schools, to your smaller physical polling districts, it creates the ability for the hand count. Sorry.
Now, I totally agree, Marvin. There's just no reason why that couldn't be done.
I mean, if they can do it in France, we should be able to figure out how to do it.
Absolutely agree. So I'm excited that so many people attended that event, Shiloh, actually, because it shows you how many people are committed to shoring up our elections. And it's funny to me, too. I don't know if you spoke to people that aren't really involved in politics. They aren't really that political, even, a lot of them that I talk to. But they want to make sure the election is secure. So good for them.
So to your point there, I was talking with quite a few people down there, and even after that first day, it felt like there was two kinds of people that were there. There were the ones that wanted to get the election straight, no matter who won. And, Mike himself said that even if President Trump won, if the shoe was on the other foot, basically, that he would still be a whistleblower and want to get the elections correct. So you had those people who wanted the elections correct or, legitimized again. And then you had other people there that just kind of felt like they were there to support President Trump, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not giving them a hard time, but you could really feel that in the room. And like you said, to your point, there was people there that they're not very politically involved, or they're just starting, or whatever the case may be. And their main objective was to be there to want to help to get our elections correct again and fair. And so I totally agree with what you said there. What did you think about the wireless monitoring device?
That stuff is not okay. I'm not a techie. That stuff doesn't impress me. I'm not as interested in that. And so, all right, my personal opinion. Maybe that's just another way to. It's a business. It's a business, so you'll make money. So there's probably a lot of money to be made in that. So I don't see why we can't just stick with the basics.
Yep.
What do you think about it?
I think it's another tool in the toolbox, because so what happened was when I got off the plane Friday, I flew back, or no, it was Saturday. Saturday I flew back the day after.
Friday.
Yep. Oh, it was Friday. Yeah, never mind. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's all such a blur. So anyway, it was Friday. I got off the plane and I made the 3-hour drive back up here and I presented to the Sons of Liberty our because we had our all chapter our all chapter meeting, and it's a big deal up here. And so I presented, and we also have a group that is doing an election integrity act, and it's basically we're going to be getting signatures so we can get that on the ballot. And that they asked me about that and what I thought of the Election Integrity Act, and this was my answer: is we as conservatives, or however you want to say that, we need to band together. And as far as I'm concerned, whatever we can use, whatever tools we need to band together and hit them from all directions, as long as it's for the cause and it's not hurting the cause and it does good. There's no reason why we don't have more than one way to hit them, because that's exactly what they're doing to us. So, in my opinion, I see it a little different. I think that it could help, especially in some of these bigger states. I got to spend some time with Dr. Frank down there. I've had him up here, or I shouldn't say I got to drive him, but we, as a conservative group, had him up here for 4 days and got to know him really well. And I respect that guy a lot, that man a lot. And, he sure seems to think this is going to help as well, especially in these bigger states. I'm all for it. As long as it's proven to help, any way we can hit them, let's hit them.
That's true too. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
So one thing about it, and I tell everybody since I've gotten back, is I got to meet Mike. I got to spend a little bit of time with him, thanks to Dr. Frank, and I shook that man's hand and I looked him in the eyes, and you can tell a lot by a man's handshake and by looking at his eyes. And I feel bad for him because the way he's been portrayed in the media is not the man that he is, and you can tell that when you first walk up to him, when you get to be around him, you can tell that he's a true patriot. He means what he says. He would do anything. I truly believe that he would do anything for this country. And the other thing that was amazing to me is it didn't matter what employee it was. I mean, I bought these shirts behind me from the lady who was running the booth, and I didn't know it at the time, but she's actually the one who makes them. She came up with the designs and everything and makes them. And so I bought one of each of them. But everyone that you talk to who's involved with him, they have nothing but great things to say about him. And that speaks volumes in my mind. So but yeah, that was my experience. It was I had a lot of emotions. I sat with some people from Illinois, and the lady I sat with most of the time, she was a banker, and we're actually going to have her on the show here in the next few weeks or whatever. But yeah, we sat there and we cried, and I mean, it was just an emotional roller coaster. I could definitely feel the presence of God. Really much, or a lot. And so that was some of the reason why it was so emotional for me anyway, is because actually I wasn't gonna say anything, but today is my 1-year anniversary of becoming born again. And so, yeah,
happy birthday.
And so it had a lot of emotions for me spiritually, as well as just being there and around all those people. Like, you can tell you're around good people too, and maybe you can comment more on this, but I mean, even where they had the food, the hospitality room, you left your stuff on the table, and I mean, Trent Luce left his cameras and everything under the table and all that, and I mean, they didn't get touched. Nobody, I mean, you could have left your phone on the table. Nobody touched it. Everybody was happy. I mean, you could just tell that you were around good patriot, I mean, just good-hearted people.
And I absolutely agree with that as well. And this is kind of why I enjoy going to these conferences. I have traveled around quite a bit
Mhm.
since I was running and campaigning. So I did go to CPAC this year, and I've gone to some other conferences, and it's just energizing to be with other people who are, kind of aligned with your belief system and love God, and actually practicing for, standing up for our Constitution. And even if we don't believe everything exactly the same, because like you said, there were some people for Trump, some people, weren't involved, but we still have the same passion. I think we all want our country to prosper, and we have this, passion for making our lives better and our country. We want to, maintain our, like I said, the Constitution, and our stand up for our rights. And so it's fun to be with those like-minded people, and the energy of it helps me, especially from, living out here. Sometimes on the island, you can feel a little isolated.
Mhm.
So it's fun to go to those things and get re-energized, and come back here and then share what I've learned and to implement some of the tools and things. So, and looking forward now to this election. I mean, I hope we can implement some of these things for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, and I think Mike said it best when he said it's no longer a Democrat versus Republican. It's the
Mhm.
uniparty. They are the uniparty, and it is now good versus evil. And I truly believe that there's a revolution happening in this country. And what I mean by that is people are starting to wake up. People are starting to come to God and realize that He's number one,
Mhm.
and we need that. Um, this godless society that we live in anymore is it's not good. I mean, we got people that they even think that they're cats. So we got to get back to you know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
we we need to get back to loving God for who he is and what he does. And so what you got, Marv?
It's just been a day, boss.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, just listening to it. I mean, I look at all this from the outside always because I've always been the person to ask the right questions before you talk about it. And that's why I was doing research on you, Sheila,
Mhm.
and on Hawaii and on the different projects that are going on down there and stuff. But what really overall has surprised me with our chat tonight is just like direct comparison lines that I can draw between what's happening there versus what's happening here, right down to the 15-minute cities and all that other garbage. But where Shiloh and I really agree on is it's about bringing information to the people. And I know some of it's not going to make us popular, but when we bring stuff forward, we want that nice sourced material. And with the Lindell event, um, I know Shiloh absolutely had a blast, and it's really I love the passion of what's going on and what we deal with here. And I don't know if you deal with it there. Like we'll get momentum going with a group, and they'll start gaining traction, and they'll be getting work done, and we always end up splintering. Like we have so many different grassroots movements in North Dakota, it's ridiculous. And if everybody could work
Mhm.
together for a year, it would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, you guys have had what, 3 GOP chairs since February?
More,
Number four with the election?
at least three. We've had eight since 2020. Since the 2020 election, we've had eight.
That's
So
insane.
yes, no one's been able to stick it out, and
And
that's
do they call it grassroots down where you guys are at too, or do you guys have
yes,
different
that's
names
what
for
this. I mean, that's what this new regime that took over. They are saying that they are the grassroots. Um, but you're right. There are all these other people who say, no, I'm the grassroots. Oh no, I'm the grassroots. Well, so and we've got to fight the establishment. Well, I don't know. It doesn't, they don't get anywhere. It's
Right.
like, what establishment are you really fighting? What are you? You're just fighting with each other.
Yep.
I'm actually kind of perplexed, especially at this moment, after losing by just a few points. It's still a little raw, and not that I really was looking forward to the responsibility of helping to turn the ship around, because it's so upside down and on the bottom of the ocean. I'm not sure if we can ever resurrect it, but I was going to try. I certainly wasn't going to dismantle it. I want to keep the Republican Party intact because I believe in it, and I hope we don't lose our status, our charter, and that we don't get decertified here. But we're at risk. Our party's at risk of being decertified here in Hawaii, and that means that none of us Republicans will get into office. So, and all those legislators need to be concerned about it. So the 30 that didn't show up to vote for me, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, and I think that's the really big takeaway on the grassroots movement is we got to get along. Like, granted, we may not agree with each other 100% of the time. I know our show that we're going to have on Thursday is going to get some people pretty riled up, but the point is if we don't work together, just because you don't like me personally doesn't mean that I may not have the right solution for what you need right now.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that we all need to get over, is getting past ego. Well, you can ask Sheila. When he asked me to do this job, it was months ago to join with the show, and 3 months before I said yes.
Yeah.
Like,
so what I did is I had him on every other episode. Just
yeah. Like, so I'm still getting used to the podcast aspect with having guests on, but you can ask Shiloh how many times you hear me say, I have questions. And it's just because, like, I'll read through stuff and it's like, why can't party A work with party B so that we can get rid of party C and be done with this? So like the events there, the Lindell event, like, that would be an amazing experience, but I'd probably spend more time asking questions than listening.
But that's also the fun part too. I'll admit I did spend a lot of time in the lobby, talking with people and doing interviews, because that was part of the community of it as well, though. So
yeah,
very much so. I told the group when I came back, I said, honestly, guys, it's too much for one person to go down there and try and cover it all for a group like ours. Because I said, I spent a lot of time in the back with Dr. Frank and getting to meet Mike and the security. And I don't know if you heard that story about when I first came in, how I got to know the one security guard.
No, what happened?
So right quick. Our group sent down some hats and different things for me to give away, and that down to some of these people, just to break the ice, and come together as other groups, And so I bring that bag in, and how you had to go through security there, and there's this one big guy. I mean, his arms are as big as my torso, and I'm not exaggerating either. I mean, he's a huge guy. Anyway, he goes, well, I'm sorry, I can't let you in with that. It's propaganda. I'm like, okay. So I just took it back to my car. I went down and talked to Dr. Frank, and I said, yeah, we got some hats and different things. I said I got a shirt for Mike and that, and some hats that I'd just like to give the team, and just a thank you from our group. And he goes, well, okay. He said, tomorrow, why don't you bring them in tomorrow? I told him that security stopped me, and so I'm getting ready now. This is still the first day. I'm getting ready to go on stage, and all of a sudden, that security guard who stopped me, he goes, hey, brother, why didn't you tell me you were a speaker here? He goes, I would have let you bring that stuff in. And I said, well, look at you and look at me. I said, you look like you eat thunder and shit lightning. I said, I didn't want to get flung out the door. And he starts laughing.
Uh,
He goes, well, just bring it in tomorrow. So long story short, I brought it in and I ended up giving him one of the hats and one of our pins. And he goes, I'll show you. This is the pin that I gave him from the Sons of Liberty.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, I'll get in trouble for wearing this on my suit, but us conservatives, we're used to that, aren't we? I said, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
That's my story with the security guard. I had to tell my wife that when I got back, and she goes, yeah, just leave it to you, Shiloh. So,
Well, Sheila, while we've been talking, I already actually updated your guest book page. So I do have the where to donate for your church on the bottom of our guest book page at the htdpodcastnd.com. So if you go to Sheila's interview for tonight, we'll have the link there for it. And we also have, if you want to help out, where to go to donate to. It's directly linked right to the website for you.
Just
Thank
a
you.
second here, and we'll share it right quick. Maybe.
I can pull it up too. But no, it
never works for me when I need it to.
No, I got it.
Anyway. Funny thing is, I'll practice that before we go on, and then all of a sudden I can't get it to come up. So I don't know.
It's fine.
Anyway, well, we really appreciate your time, Sheila. And
there we go. So guest book.
Yeah.
We got Sheila. You scroll right here. You click the link. Takes you right where you need to be.
Perfect.
There you go.
So
that's awesome.
I'm going to stop that live stream. So yeah, it was great having you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, and best of luck in 24 for sure.
Thank you.
Keep in touch with us and keep us informed. And if there's big changes, let us know. We'll have you on again. And as you get closer to your election, we'll definitely have you on again. And you got our support. So
thank you so much. Thank you both. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. It's been nice chatting with you both.
You bet. You have a good evening.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye. That's Sheila Walker from Maui. So that was quite the experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nuts when you think about it. It's crazy to hear what's going on with the destroyed areas. Like, I'm really interested to see what they do there, if they give support to the people that own the homes, or what happens.
So can you bring up the page again, and let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen on Thursday.
Yeah.
So Thursday, we're going to do a special show. It's still going to be on at 8 p.m. Central, here live on all of our platforms. We're going to have Trent Luce on, and we're going to speak with Trent Luce about his letters here. One of them is his CO2 pipeline.
Yep.
And
so
then, go ahead.
I did link the letters right here so you can read them in their full context on their own. Anytime it's green or it's underlined, that is going to be your link to the source material.
Okay.
Same with his follow-up one down here about President Trump. You can go read the entire article all on your own.
Yeah.
And then, let us know on your comments, stuff like that.
If you have questions, if anyone has questions while you're reading this stuff, please reach out to us on the website. There's a contact us page on the website. Send your questions there, and we'll definitely ask them. I mean, this is going to be somewhat controversial, I think, because of not necessarily the CO2 pipeline stuff, but the President Trump letter. Obviously, he has some, information in there that is somewhat controversial, and some of the Trump supporters might, not like it. But I think it's worth a conversation of having it. And so, yeah, if you guys would take the time to read those, again, he's going to be on with us live 8:30, or not 8:30, 8 o'clock Central Time, Thursday night. We're going to have him, and we're going to discuss both of those deals. Obviously, the CO2 pipeline is a big issue.
I just saw an article on that. South Dakota rejected the pipeline now.
I seen
But
that.
I don't know if you saw Governor Burgum in Iowa getting into arguments with the crowd this last weekend. That was pretty awesome.
Yep.
It's not about a big check, folks. I'm sorry, I don't care how they pitch it to you. It's not about how much you're going to get instant gratification for in one paycheck.
The thing about it is, for me, if I'm understanding this correctly, number one, you need to figure out, or you need to find out who owns Summit. And if the information is right, China is one of them who's back. There's
which kicks them out.
Yes, China, Saudi Arabia, and there was one more. Okay, so if that's the case, and they go through with these leases, you no longer have control of your land. They can tell you what to do. Okay, so that's problem number one for me. Problem number two. Let's say one of these deals blows. Okay, it's what was it, Marvin? 2,200 pounds of pressure, 2,800.
2,800 psi. With how fast it would push out, even with the shutoff valves, it's a couple miles that would be affected from what I was reading. But
yep. So if it's going through your field next to your house, I'm sorry, folks, you're toast, because it's odorless. You can't see it. You can't even drive a vehicle. And that's another thing is that's another big concern that was brought up when the Oliver County Planning and Zoning Commission was doing their deal last week, and they turned it down. So Mercer County, if you guys are out there watching, your meeting is tomorrow morning. I would suggest that you guys be there and tell them, no, we don't want this. No matter what they tell you, it's not good for the coal industry, period. In fact, it'll shut it down.
Fracking, they don't have the technology there yet. They're not even dumping it near the oil fields. They're just literally shoving it in the ground and hoping nothing happens.
Yep.
Also, that they can get tax credits and kickbacks while you take all the liability onto your land, onto your family, onto your conscience.
Oh, and by the way, the insurance companies ain't going to cover you or your land.
But let's save more of that for Trent, because that's going to be a good show. I would be very surprised if it doesn't go for an hour and a half.
Yep. So that's going to be on Thursday night, folks, at 8 p.m. Central. You can watch on whatever platform you're watching us on. We'll have some more advertisement for that. So go ahead and share that. If you guys go to the website and read the articles that we have up from Trent himself, you can share it. If you got questions, go to the contact page and write your questions down. We'll try and get as many of them on as we can. With that, if you guys are, last week we had Gavin here from the QX box. You guys can go out and check that out if you decide that you want to tackle that. We've got a promo code that will get you some money off there. So I got that running across the screen now too. Go to QX.TV, use our coupon code for HTD. That'll get you some money off on that. And we're going to have Gavin on again probably in a month or so once they get everything up and going to explain more of that technology and what's coming down the pipe. I'm really excited about that. So with that, do you got anything else, Marvin?
No, I think we're at a good point to call it for a night, so I can get some more reading done before we talk to Trent.
All right, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate you. Appreciate all of you guys watching tonight. Thanks again. Happy trails from Here's the Deal. We will see you Thursday night with Trent Luce at 8 p.m. Central.
Y'all have a great night now.